My name is Bob, and I served 4 years in the Army, and I served my last 9 months over in Desert Storm. I was stationed over in Al Jahar, Kuwait, and I was an armor crewman. I was with the M60A1 tanks. Just one of the memorable times that I had that when we was over there, my tank got hit twice. Second time our tank got hit, blew our tracks, and when you blow a track, you're like, sitting duck, because it's like flat tires on a car. So I was kind of freaking out, wanting to get out of there, and our tank commander got a hold of the general, and they got a hold of the Air Force and the Air Force Command and did ground cover while our recovery unit, which is a tow truck for tanks, they come in and towed us out of there. So towed us back to camp, and by the time I got out of the tank, I was like sweating bullets because I was scared to death. So, but other than that, that's one of the most memorable times I had in the service. So.
How long were you in the service?
4 years.
How do you deal with kind of that fear and the unknown?
Anytime I hear an explosion or a gunshot, and then like that, I freak out, and if I don't know it's coming. It's like, when my wife and I would go down to Red, White, and Boom every year, and before they tore down Veterans Memorial, they used to shoot off a cannon there, start at 7 o'clock at night. I think it was every hour on the hour until the fireworks started. And one of the years, my wife and I was actually walking out. We was back here by Cosi, and we was walking out toward Broad Street, and I knew it was coming up time for them to shoot that cannon off. But as soon as we got on Broad Street, I heard that thing, and it just surprised me, and I hit the ground. I instantly went down, and there's just thousands of people standing around me. And, people's looking at me like, what's wrong with this weirdo, And my wife had to kind of put her hand on my shoulder and say, hey, it's okay, we're in Ohio, we're in Columbus. And I had to kind of just look up around to verify where I was at. But as soon as I heard that, I hit the ground. So just a natural instinct. So.
What were some of the challenges after your 4-year service when you came back and you had to get acclimated to quote-unquote normal life again? Do you remember kind of what the hardest part of that was?
Just trying to take myself out of that situation. So, just brings back memories.
Imagine.
So, sorry.
That's okay. Did you use resources, or was there support groups, anything like that for you at the time? So obviously it never really goes away. It's kind of with you.
It's always a memory.
How do you think the United States treats its veterans?
For the most part, I think they're pretty crappy. I feel that, the veteran, gives his life, or, knowing he's going to give his life or her life for this country and fights for this country and comes back, the veteran gives everything they can for this country. So when they come back, the country seems like the country don't want to do nothing for the veteran. There's so many homeless veterans out there, and I don't like that idea. I don't like having homeless. I don't think there should be a homeless veteran anywhere. But we've got so many homeless veterans around this country, it's ridiculous. We've got, and then there's different places. We got homeless shelters for veterans, strictly just for veterans, and I feel the government, ought to take care of these veterans, provide for them, pay their rent, whatever it takes. The country, the veteran, did whatever they had to do to take care of this country, so I feel this country needs to take care of them.
So what would you say motivated you to enlist?
Well, I lived in Kentucky, so when I lived in Kentucky, wasn't nothing to do down there but work in the coal mines, and you can't pay me enough to work in the coal mines. So, and I tell everybody, I said one of the main reasons, I was almost 17 years old when I signed up. So one of the main reasons I signed up was because back in high school, I seen a lot of the guys, especially the guys, they was coming back after they graduated. They was coming back to school to visit their friends, and they was in Marine uniforms, Army uniforms, Navy uniforms there, and coming around, all the girls wanted to surround them because they was in the service, they was in uniform. And I said, I got to have one of them uniforms.
That's what I want.
That's what I want. So that was one of the reasons I joined the military, just to get a uniform so I could attract girls, But after I got in, I really got through. Basic training was really rough. Basic training was pretty hard. But once I got into AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training, it got a lot easier. And then when I got to active duty, got to my permanent station, it was pretty fun.
Did it
So-
teach you, would you say it taught you how to be a grown-up and a man?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I mean, and I've told, I go to church now, and I've told my pastor and stuff, when I was younger, I was not the person I am today, and I was in a lot of trouble when I was younger, and I didn't care about nobody but myself. And so the military, kind of kicked that out of me, and taught me to be a man, taught me respect for other people and dignity, and taught me to be the person I am today. So
all in all, it's an experience you wouldn't necessarily give back, even though it's...
yeah, I mean, I've told my wife, Dana knows about my injuries and stuff. I've had civil surgeries. I've got so much metal in me now. But I've told my wife, I said, that even if the Army knew about my injuries and they came and knocked on my door to this day, if they came and knocked on my door and said, Bob, we need you back, I said, I'd pack my bags and go in a heartbeat. And my wife's like, well, what if they sent you to Afghanistan? I said, well, if that's where they send me, that's where they send me. I was like, I fought for this country once, I'll do it again. I said, I love this country so much. I was like, if they asked me to come back, I said, I'd pack my bags and go in a heartbeat.
Do you have kids of your own?
I've got 4 kids, my wife and I, and we actually adopted 5, so we got 9 kids. And out of 9 kids, we got 15 grandkids.
Does anybody show interest in serving in the military?
Not yet, not really. I mean, 2 or 3 of my kids did when they was back in high school, but once they graduated, I think that kind of changed.
Yeah, it's a different generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, none of my kids are in the military, and to my knowledge, hasn't thought about being in the military. So, but but my wife's nephew just left this past Monday. He went to basic training for the Army. So that's my wife's nephew.
Did you give him any advice when he left?
I did not even know until the last minute. So I found out like Sunday night, and he left early Monday morning. So I really didn't even get to talk to him.
Have you had people ask you, just even strangers or people ask whether or not you would suggest serving?
I mean, I've had some people. I do a lot of events around Veterans Day. Buckeye Valley Schools and Olentangy High School does events, and it's actually Olentangy Middle School. And veterans go in there they have a Veteran Appreciation Day. So a bunch of veterans go in there and they get to talk to the classes, about their experience, what they did, things of that nature. And then we've had students ask, why we went in, and what it's like being in the military. Some of them that I remember in the past have asked me, they've showed some interest in joining the military, so they want to know what basic training's like, and what the military's like, and everything. So I just give my experience, the experience is different to everybody, everybody has their own experience. Some people's like, hey, it sucks, I didn't like it. Some people, hey, I loved it, I wish I could still do it, and some people say, hey, it's all right. Me, myself, I loved it. I should have stayed in, but, I was stationed in Fort Riley, Kansas. I did not like Kansas. And I wanted to go to Fort Carson, Colorado, or Germany. And my sergeant and my captain wanted to keep me at Fort Riley if I re-enlisted, and I didn't want us to, so I got out. But, I look at it, if I'd have stayed in, I'd have never met my wife. We just celebrated our 16-year anniversary. So everything happens for a reason.
So I'm curious, knowing what you know and having had your experience in the military, do you feel like our country would benefit from a mandatory service?
Like a draft?
Something like that, or maybe even something like how Israel, women and men serve 2 years, and people serve in different ways.
I don't know if we'd really benefit from it, because there's a lot of people that I know that served in Vietnam that was drafted, and they despised the military because they was forced to go in the military. So I feel that, if you go under as a voluntary basis, you respect it more, and, you want to do a better job because you're going in the military under your will instead of being forced to. So, I just feel that people respect it more and they want to do a better job because that's what they wanted to do compared to being forced in the military. If you're forced to do something, you don't want to do, you don't want to put 110% into it, so I don't think it would benefit the country if we was forced into the military.
Any last thoughts you'd like to share with us?
I just, that anybody that, would consider joining the military, I figure it'd be the best choice of their life,
If you could use one word or one sentence, if you were a book, an actual book, what would the title of your book be?
Life in the military. So, which I'm actually in the process of writing a book.
Oh, wonderful.
So I'm writing about my life because after I come out of the military, You know, I became a private investigator, then I was a bodyguard, so I bodyguarded a lot of stars. And then I became a police officer, you know, and so I've had my aunt tell me, you know, you need to write a book. And I was like, you know, why? She goes, oh, you know, write about your life. I was like, who would want to read about my life, you know? And my aunt's like, you know, you might be liable to inspire somebody, you know? And I never really thought about it that way, you know? So I was like, well, you know, I don't know. So years went by, and then I thought, you know, I was like, I wonder if I could do it. So I started writing it, and I'm up to the age where I'm just getting ready to join the military now. I actually started my book before I was born, when my mother used to be high school, you know, the homecoming queen. She met my dad. They started dating, and my brother came about, and I came about. So I started my book before I was even born. And so, you know, I'm up to the point now where I'm getting ready to join the military, and I've contacted a publisher in Columbus, you know, before I even started writing, to find out, you know, if there's a big call for that type of book. And he told me 95% of the time when a veteran writes a book, it's a huge hit. And I asked him why. I said, because most veterans, when they write a book, they write about their time in war, destruction, death, you know, and people like reading about it. So, and I was like, well, you know, I never looked at it that way either. So I started writing, and I told my wife, I said, you know, I'll never know. I mean, it could be a big flop. You know, it could make us $1 million. Who knows? So I started, and we'll see what happens.
And either way, it'll probably be a pretty powerful experience for you. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll read it.
Yeah.
I'll read it.
You know, like I said, it's going to, you know, once I get in depth in the military, my book is probably going to bring back a lot of memories.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your story, a little bit of it with us
No
today.
problem.